Okay, thank you and welcome to our Tuesday Torah class. And I'll open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you we can gather together and read your word. And in Leviticus, we ask you to give us eyes to see, ears to hear, wisdom, understanding into your word. And thank you for all this in Yeshua's name. Amen. All right. So Beth, are you back in Arizona? No, she can talk. Well, we'll assume you are. So last week we were in Leviticus 25. I think we were right about it, somewhere in the midst of 8 and 22. But I had told you about the connection between Hovel, which is the word for Jubilee, and Genesis chapter 4, the linguistic connection between the names of Hevel, Yavel, Yuvel, and Tuvel, Cain. How they sound very similar, and in the case of Yuvel, the spelling is exactly the same other than the vowel pointing. And the other clue being from Cain to the sons of Lamech being 7 generations, implying that it's a type of Jubilee, or a 7, even though I'm sure it was much more than 7 years, or even probably 50 years for that matter. But it's kind of a picture of it. So I wanted to read in this chapter 4, so we can look at it a little bit. I'm going to start reading verse 1 through, we'll read down through 15. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahweh. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. And Abel he also brought the firstlings of his flock, and the fat thereof. And Yahweh had respect unto Abel and his offering, but unto Cain and his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And Yahweh said unto Cain, why are you wroth? Why is thy countenance fallen? If thou does well, if thou do well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou does not do well, sin lies at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with his brother, with Abel his brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And Yahweh said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what have you done? The voice of thy brother's blood cries unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, and which has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. Thou shalt, when thou tills the soil, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that finds me shall slay me. And Yahweh said unto him, therefore whoever slays Cain, vengeance will be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any find him should kill him. So when I would always read this, I I always thought, I don't know if you thought this, but when it says vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold, I always thought if somebody were to slay Cain, that Yahweh would deal with that person. But it doesn't really say that. It just says that vengeance will be taken on him. So the question is, who would be taking the vengeance on the person who slays Cain? And so if we were to look at this verse 15, we'll see that this word vengeance, this word vengeance is the word Yud Yod Kof Mem. And what's interesting is in verse 8, it says Cain talked with his brother. He says Cain rose up against Abel and slew him. We were to look at this word rose up, Yakam. It's the same word, Yukam, Yakam. So in rising up, he's actually seeking vengeance on his brother. But the question is he really seeking vengeance on his brother, or who is he seeking vengeance on, you would say? It's not really Abel, is it? Wouldn't it be Yahuwah? Because that's who he's really angry at, isn't it? Because look here, when it says that Yahweh had respect unto Abel, but unto Cain he did not have respect. And because of that, Cain was angry. So his anger is really at Yahweh. But you can't seek vengeance on Yahweh, so he takes it out on his brother. Now, it is interesting that when he does slay his brother, no one's ever died before. And they don't really know the concept of murder. All he knew is that he wants to get back at his brother. And so he strikes him and he ends up killing him. And so when Yahweh asks him, what have you done? When he says, I don't know, he's not really lying about that. He doesn't really know what happened because Abel was alive and all of a sudden he's dead. He didn't really know that this would happen, but it did. I think the real sin is right here. Am I my brother's keeper? It's like, well, now he's gone. Like, and he just doesn't care. It's like, you know. So through Cain, we see that vengeance has entered in the world. So vengeance versus justice. If you're in a court of law is objective, right? Because you have a judge who will try a case. He hears both sides of the plaintiff and the defendant, and he'll make a judgment and a ruling based on the evidence that he hears. And in a, of course, ideal court setting, this is what will take place. So the judge will look objectively. Now, a person who takes vengeance looks at the idea subjectively. It's a personal thing, right? So Cain was taking this personally, and we know the example the Bible always gives is the man with the axe, who when he brings his axe back with the head of the axe head goes flying off and hits his friend in the head and kills him. more a case of manslaughter than outright murder. So he goes to a sanctuary city where justice can be served if they need to bring him back to stand trial. They do that. But while he's in that sanctuary city, the avenger of blood cannot go to that sanctuary city and kill him or take vengeance. And usually that person is a relative. So it's pretty easy to see that who's going to be the avenger in the case of Cain? More than likely, it's going to be his progeny, right? One of his sons. So vengeance is personal. It's possible the avenger will misinterpret things. He'll blame someone because it feels like they did them wrong, even in actuality, they didn't. There was a case recently, I don't know if you heard of this. A man struck a boy in his vehicle, and I'm not sure where this took place, but fairly recent. And he ended up killing this kid, and he stopped, called 911, did what he was supposed to do. And while he was on the phone call, the father of the boy, because apparently it happened like right in their neighborhood, and the street or the road was kind of notorious for being kind of a dangerous road in that respect. The father came over and shot and killed the man while he was on the 911 call. So that's a case of a man who's he's not thinking straight. To him, it's personal. He killed his son, so he killed this man. Served his own justice. Unfortunately for him, he's convicted. I don't know if he got convicted, but definitely was, indicted, I guess is the word for man, actually murder. So in doing so, Cain opens a Pandora's box. Cain's act of vengeance will become the vehicle through which you get the protection you now request. So the protection that Yahweh says he's going to have is not a promise saying, I'm going to protect you. Anybody who kills you, I'll deal with it. What he's saying is that this is what's going to happen. It's more of a prophecy than anything. And this is just the nature of human nature, I guess. When somebody is avenged like that, what Cain did, people get upset. But in this case, you only have two families. You have the family of Cain, and you have the family of Seth. Now, the family of Seth isn't really involved in the matter, and Abel has no progeny. He has nobody who will seek vengeance after him. But the idea is that if anybody would seek vengeance against Cain, his progeny are the ones who will protect him. So let's look at Cain's son.
What about Seth?
Well, you could say his progeny might, but
For Seth himself.
or Seth himself, but the idea is that does he really want to? Because he knows if he does, then he's going to start basically a war with Cain's family and his family. So for the time being, there's peace between the two families. I would think that no one in Cain's family is going to do anything to him because he's the patriarch. And Seth's family, I would think, would probably just avoid him. Anyways, he's been outcast. He's out, pretty much gone out of wherever the sons of Seth are dwelling at the time, I would imagine. So in the case of Cain's son, we'll look here at verse 17. Cain knew his wife, she conceived and bare Enoch, or Hanok in Hebrew. He built a city, called the name of the city after the name of his son, Hanok. Well, this name Hanok and it means to dedicated, built. Actually, what I read, one of the meanings is educate or train someone in a path for life. In the scripture, Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he shall go. Let's see if it's here somewhere. I don't see it. But that word for train and train up a child is actually the word hanok. In this list. So Cain, what he's teaching his son is his way of life, which is not the godly way of life. So one of the things, so that's like one of two things that Cain's act has, trying to think of the word, consequences upon his progeny, because now they're kind of bound by this oath, kind of like a familial oath, almost like the mafia in a way, where you're bound to your family. The other one is the land. Verse 11 and 12. Thou art cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tills the soil, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. So the land, when they go to till the land is not going to give back her strength. So basically, it's kind of a waste of time. So not only is he an outcast, he has no home, but he's lost his land. He has no land. He's just a wanderer and a vagabond, as it says, fugitive, vagabond, wandering the earth, no place to call home. So he builds a city, and well, what do we think of cities? Cities are the symbol of wickedness. We always, in our cases, we want to get out of the city. We want to live out on the land. We want to, get away from all that. And because that's where all the bad stuff happens. So moving on, what we find is that all these generations of Cain, and we'll just read the names here. So Cain, so this is the lineage of Cain. So Enoch, Hanok is his first son, Irad, Mehujael, Methusael, Lamech, and then the sons of Lamech, Yavel, Yuvel, Tuval, Cain. So up until Methusael, it was pretty much everything was fairly, that's just the way it was for Cain and his progeny. They just went along. And so when we get to these guys, so Lamech has two wives. The name of one was Ada, the name of the other Zillah. Adabor Yabal, he is the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. His brother's name was Yubal. Yuval, he was the father of all such as handle the harp and the organ. Zillah also bare Tubal Cain, an instructor of every artificer of in brass and iron, and the sister of Tubal Cain was Nehemiah. So Yabal, he's the father such that dwell in tents and have cattle. I find it interesting that nobody thought of a tent for this guy. So Cain and his progeny are out living in the wilderness, and apparently they had whatever kind of shelter they had didn't involve a tent and cattle. So this guy, so this guy is kind of a he's a herdsman, much like Cain. Tubal Cain, an artificer of brass and iron. So one of the things I'm sure he created were implements for plowing. Along with other stuff, he probably. Now, on a side note, I've read where it is possible that this was the family who was the first family to intermingle with the angels of the incursion, which is kind of an interesting thought. But for the purposes of this, Yabal and Tubal Cain created something that was useful for the family of Cain that kind of eased some of the curse that was upon him. And it's interesting that it happens in the 7th generation from Cain. So as far as Yuval, the father of all that such the harp and organ, you would think, well, what does that really have to do with anything? But okay, so let me read this here. So these innovations brought a kind of primal Yovel to the world. What does the Yovel year do? Two things. It brings freedom to servants and it returns ancestral homes. So now the land isn't so hard to till, and they have some semblance of a home with tents and cattle. So who's the first person forced to relinquish any sense of permanence on his own land, his ancestral home? The first person to labor and gain nothing. We could say that that person is Cain and his progeny. So as far as Yuval's invention, Yuval's invention is quite different. It spoke of something far more essential, the spiritual rot that caused the curse of the land to haunt mankind in the first place. Yaval and Yubal Cain, for Yaval and Yubal both seem to echo Hevel's name. Might they split Hevel's legacy? Now, Hevel, and this is interesting because I always would think the name of Abel, which is Hevel, would be something that is like positive, I would guess. But
It's like a fleeting thing, isn't it?
yeah, but one of the definitions was vanity. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. I don't, but you're right. What the real meaning is like a vapor, a fleeting breath,
I think
because
I think
here it is, breathing.
my thought is because uh, Eve thought he had a sacrifice or a man to get them back into the garden,
In
and they were
Cain.
actually twins.
Oh,
And so the first one was the one she was interested, the firstborn. She says, I
Cain.
don't care about the second one. It's like, whatever.
Hmm. I did not know that.
Well, that's my thinking on it
That's
anyway.
kind of the opposite of Rebecca, right? She was more interested in the second. They were twins.
Well,
I
there's
did.
another connection to Rebecca and Jacob and Esau. Remember, Jacob dwelled in tents, and
Yeah.
Esau was a hunter,
Yep.
man of the
Yep.
field.
So if you were to look in it's Ecclesiastes 1:2, it says vanity of vanities. In the Hebrew, it's Hevel ha-Hevel. And I thought when I read that, I was like, Cain or Abel means vanity? But what it really means, like John said, is just it's like a whisper or a vapor that it just vanishes, a mist. Because you think about his life was cut short. He was here, and then he was gone. You know, people are living 900 years back then, and he, who knows how many years he got, but I'm sure it wasn't 900. Probably wasn't even 100. So he was here and gone. So in verse 10, where it says, the voice of your brother's blood cries unto me from the ground. So when you think of Yuval, who basically created music, and once again, I find it interesting that there was, maybe there were people singing, but as far as instrumentation, there was none of that until Yuval created. It says harp and organ, but most versions say the the pipe and the lyre. I don't know that he created an organ. Did he have a Hammond organ or something? That'd be kind of cool. But a lyre is more of a stringed instrument, and the pipe would be a like a flute, something like that. So music is an antidote for toil, right? You think of like in American history, the slaves in the field, in the cotton fields, would sing these spiritual songs, and music kind of relieves the pain of what you're experiencing, and led to a whole genre of music called the blues. And so, and you think of the phrase where we say music soothes the savage beast. It's kind of a salve, right? When you're down, you know, and you play music, we like listening to music, and it kind of makes us feel good. So that's kind of the idea, that in him creating music and having a voice, it's kind of reviving the voice of Abel, because his voice, his blood, the voice of his blood was crying out from the ground. So everything seems really good until, well, we get to Lamech. And Lamech said unto his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech. For I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. So Cain was only avenged sevenfold, and that was a proclamation by Yahweh himself. This, on the other hand, Islamic, boldly stating that, well, if Cain's got 7 times, I've got 77-fold. So he's taking it upon himself. He's taking it a step further.
So he's literally taking it to 11, because 7 times
Yep.
11 is 77.
That's a good point. Cranked it up to 11.
Spinal Tap, man.
That's funny. But you see the point, right? It's like everybody was afraid to, go after Cain because of the retribution they might experience. Lamech, on the other hand, he upped the ante greatly, and now nobody wants, to go after him.
So that was his way of getting this insurance, is he has to murder a guy.
Yep.
I don't think he got the message.
No. So Lamech takes a violent emotional outburst by Cain and sharpens it into a deliberate and devastating political weapon. So it might be that he heard the music of his son and he's going to take it and he's going to weaponize it. They actually call what he says to his wives a song. It's kind of which would be the first song. It kind of actually mimics Deuteronomy 32:1, which is the song of Moses, because in that it says, "Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth." And Lamech here says, "Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech." So it's similar in his, where I got this from Rabbi Foreman. He says this is would be the first song in the Torah. The Song of Moses in Deuteronomy 31 is the last song in the Torah. And then at the very end of, so he says he's going to be avenged 7-fold. Again, this word of avenged, yukam. In the Song of Moses, at the second to the last verse, verse 43, says, "For he avenges Yakum, the blood of his children, and takes vengeance, Nakam, of his adversaries." So the opening phrase and then the last phrase kind of mimics the Song of Moses. So Lamech is confessing to a crime, but no remorse. His speech is boastful and dripping with malice. He offers his wife's safety. No one would dare mess with Lamech, because if Cain would be avenged 7-fold, then Lamech 77-fold. Lamech is the world's first fully developed strongman, a proto-tyrant. And if you were to take his name, Lamed Mem, that's a Sati. What is that, John? Hetzafi, right? If you were to transpose the words, you have Mem, Lamed. Hey, is that a Het, John? Hetzafi?
It's a Kaf Sophie, I
Oh,
think.
Kafsafi, yeah. Anyways, if you transpose, you put the Mem in the front, you have Melech, king. So his name transposed is a king. He's the first true tyrant. Cain might have been a tyrant, but this guy is like, he's stepping up the game. And from there on out, it's pretty much downhill.
So at the bottom there, Mike, where it's got
Yeah.
if you click the letters, the ones on the, yeah, click that one. You just have the mouse over.
Oh, yeah.
The first light blue one.
Yeah, that one, first one.
If you click it, or it should show you,
The name.
well, you should just, or hover over it. Yeah, just hover over it.
Mm,
Huh. Let it hover for a while. Oh, well. On mine, it does. It shows you the name of the letter.
Oh, okay. Well, I should know. I just have
Well, if you ever get lost, I'm going to make that better one of these days.
So Cain's spirit of vengeance remained dormant for 7 generations, but Lamech reached for the embers of Cain's rage and rekindled it. Vengeance is now business as usual, and it eventually escalates out of control, as we read in Genesis 6:6, and from there on out, the next big thing is the flood. So Jovel and the children of Lamech are one of the lessons of Cain's first furtive experiments with violence is that vengeance always co-opts unwitting bystanders. In Cain's case, the bystander in the text most directly references is the land, also his progeny, whether they like it or not. A familial duty is thrust upon the sons of Lamech. So what legacy did the sons of Lamech have? So Rabbi Foreman makes the argument that it's the law of the Yovel year, linguistically from their names and conceptually from their innovations. A socio-economic version of Cain's curse, because slavery is primarily a function of lack of food and shelter. The greatest historical bulwark against slavery has always been land ownership. So Cain's curse for a modern age: to be your brother's keeper, one who sold his ancestral land. So we're going to go back to Leviticus so we could tie it back. 25, verse 25. If thy brother be waxen poor and has sold away some of his possession, if any of his kin comes to redeem it, then shall he redeem it which his brother sold. So this is the person who sells his ancestral land. 25:48. After that he is sold, he may be redeemed again. One of his brethren may redeem him. Either his uncle or his uncle's uncle may redeem him. If any that is nigh of kin unto him, his family may redeem him. Or if he is unable, he may redeem himself. And he shall reckon with him that brought him from the year that he was sold unto him, to the year of Jubilee. So, in a perfect world, if you have to sell part of your land and then you end up having to sell yourself to be a bondsman, hopefully one of your relatives is going to be the one who will redeem you, right? But what if nobody steps up? What if no relative wants to redeem you? What do you do then?
So he's only redeemed. Well, so he can always be redeemed by his brother, but if that doesn't happen, then the Jubilee kicks in.
Yeah, that's the idea, the Jubilee. So if nobody redeems him, now the guy might be dead by the time the Jubilee rolls around, but his family will receive, they'll be able to move back to their ancestral land. Everything goes back. So that was the reason for the Jubilee to begin with, is so that we don't end up in a situation where there's indebtedness through generation. Go ahead, John.
So the bigger question, it seems to me, is why is this guy, as the King James says, waxing poor? I
Well,
mean, you gotta go out of your way to screw that up. It seems to me
yeah,
if you're with the believers and you're in, you have control over your situation. I just think and that's the Jubilee is a reflection. I'm trying to understand or listening to what the guy you're talking about.
yeah,
It's God's reaction to the bad people behaving as you would expect badly. Or so I'm suggesting that the Cain this the people of Cain maybe put this guy in, conned him into being waxen poor.
right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, just to
Because they don't
tie
they
it
don't
up
have
here.
land.
Yeah,
They don't they want the true substance comes from the land. And if
right.
you don't have access to the
You don't
land,
have land, you don't have anything,
yeah,
pretty
so
much.
these descendants of Cain are like, well, we got to do something. We got to con these guys into making us, you know.
Yeah. So he ties it up by this verse, and ye shall hallow the 50th year, proclaim liberty throughout all the land, and all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and you shall return every man. I wanted to read verse 9. That's it. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement. So you make the trumpet sound through all your land, and this is the shofar, I believe. Yeah, shofar.
So again, the Jubilee is something that's like, why are you in this situation where the Jubilee has
Yeah,
an impact on you? If you should be blessed and passing your blessings down to the next generation. There's like, your
right.
problem should
Well,
be, I
yeah, that's
got
the
too
way it
much
should work.
wealth.
But if you
Right.
get in that situation,
So
uh,
we hear the word, oh, it's jubilation. And it's
yeah.
really like, it's
So
really a negative.
Cain made the statement, "Am I my brother's keeper?" So we have to ask the question, why would a relative not redeem somebody who finds himself in this situation? I mean, what motivates a person? Do they just like think, he's a bum, he's always messing up, you know, I'm not going to help him anymore. If there's any kind of reasons, maybe they just don't care, they don't want to get involved. But the scripture says, if you're an uncle or a cousin or a brother, it's your duty to redeem your brother. But
It's also your duty to teach your brother not to get put in a situation like this to begin with, I would say.
that is
Both.
true, yes. Unfortunately, people do find themselves in that situation. And whether they didn't listen to reason or not, that's no excuse for not redeeming your brother, would you say?
Yeah, but at some point, you know,
So, yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah, that's all. That's the only thing I'm trying to point out
Yeah.
is if we're
So
behaving correctly, this isn't a problem.
that is true. But that was the reason for the Jubilee, because apparently this wasn't happen. This is like a fail safe. So why did they blow the trumpet? Uh, Abel's cry was ignored by a vengeful brother. The harmony of Yuval's pipe was silenced by the malicious song of Lamech. But in the cry of the Yovel shofar, the Torah provides an eternal legacy for the lost music of Yuval and the voice of Hebal. So, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I'm my brother's keeper. So, more to John's point, we do have kind of a system like that. You can claim bankruptcy. Uh, I've filed bankruptcy once, and it doesn't erase all debt, but it does erase a significant amount. And actually, the waiting period to is 7 years. When you can where it's like taken off the book, so to speak. So anybody have any comments on this? Other than John? Let's see who's here.
Nope.
Let's see, Mark's are here.
I want to declare a jubilee from Social
Mark's here.
Security.
So,
I want all my
Security,
money back.
that would be nice.
Yes.
Now, we've had this discussion before where
That's what I'm waiting for. I have to state a claim, though, upon which relief can be granted. So,
well, I actually do collect Social Security.
but no, I'm talking about
All the money you made,
right.
I would
So
glad.
here's a thought: when the Israelites were in, did they leave in the Exodus during the jubilation during Jubilee?
Did they leave?
Yeah, was there any connection to Jubilee and the Exodus? I guess is my question.
Uh,
Because they did cry
wasn't
out.
who's the guy that talks with Mark on those? Not Cyrus, but can't think of his name.
I don't know.
One of his partner that he has those
He's
webinars.
right. He's the guru on Jubilee.
Yeah, I can't
Done a
think of
lot of
his name.
study on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know it'd be a good question to ask.
well, he claims that yeah, that was a Jubilee year. The when they were released, the Jubilee would have been in the fall. So come Passover time, they were released from slavery, and they were on their way to the land. And he says his idea is that that was I believe the 50th Jubilee.
Wow, 50th to 50.
Well, there's
Of course,
according to
Mark
his
goes.
reckoning, there's 120 Jubilees. That if the Passover would have been the 50th Jubilee year. And it has to do with the text in Daniel, the seven. I remember reading it. It's kind of interesting. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Or am I just
In Daniel? I
yeah,
don't. No, I don't. I'm just looking at
the
it from a patterns point of view.
uh,
You're getting because remember, what do when they spoil them? Israel spoils the Egyptians and they get all the gold. They give them all the gold.
right,
So
right. But it would make sense that that would be a Jubilee year, right? Because
that's what I'm
they're
speculating. Yeah.
being released. Let's look in Daniel. I don't even know which chapter that would be. It's the one where he talks about the the 70 weeks. That's it. So from if you have Jubilee 50 at the Exodus, that leaves 70 more Jubilees. So in Daniel, he says it's I'm not sure which anybody know what chapter that's in? It's 70, it's 70 weeks for your people. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about, John? Sure where that's at. I don't think it's 12. Where it says 70 weeks are decreed for your people.
Try Daniel 12.
12. Oh, Marco, what's I can't think of the guy's name who we do the webinar with. Not Cyrus.
Joe Dumont.
Joe, that's it. Joe Dumont. Yeah. Yeah, he's the one who came up with this, I think. But it's an interesting idea. It's not 12. Maybe it's 7. Well, mutate. Am I in 8? I mean, 8. Let me try 7.
Chapter 9:24.
Oh, 9:24. Okay.
70 weeks are determined upon thy people.
That's it. Yep, that's the verse.
If I had better search, we could find it through my website, but I'm not there yet.
So he believes that the 70 weeks are the 70 Jubilees from the Passover Exodus to the very end. Interesting.
That's
huh?
right. Yeah, that's right.
Say that
And that's
again.
it.
The 70 weeks is 70 Jubilees, or
Yeah, from the Exodus to the end. Because there's
Yeah, because
120.
it's 70 Shavuos. Well, that's a Shavua, just like counting the Omer. It's just seven periods of 7.
right?
Yeah,
So, yeah. So 70 Shavuos, 70 weeks could be, 7 sets of 7 sevens, so
Right.
there are 70, periods of Shavuos. So, yeah.
yeah. And isn't like the first 7 where he brings it to when David is ascends to the throne,
Yeah, and we could have
where they say
multiple,
that's when Jerusalem went back to Israel because he conquered Jerusalem.
yeah, and we could have multiple sets of 70s and 7s happening at the same time, along with the idea of the 70 Jubilees. We could also have the literally 70 weeks, 70 years from the decree in 69 until 2039.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, my question, I don't know if you heard, Mark, my question was, what when Israel left Egypt during the Exodus, was that a Jubilee?
That's what I believe.
Yes.
What Joe Dumont says. Yeah.
And you're basing it off of 9:24, Daniel 9:24.
Well, that's his
Well,
interpretation of
okay.
that scripture, but
You're
just in general, I would think that would be a Jubilee year because of their being released from bondage.
Yeah.
It would make sense. Yeah, it would make sense. So, but I'd have to look more into seeing if a Shemitah year could qualify, or does it have to be a Jubilee?
Yeah.
And but I was just watching some stuff today that is basically putting forth the idea that the Messiah can only come on a Jubilee year. So the return, because of the whole when the horn is blown.
Yeah.
Huh?
Say that again. You kind of broke up a little bit.
When I say that there's a teaching out there that says the Messiah could only return on a Jubilee because of several passages that say that it's going to be at the sound of the great trump. Well, this would be a Jubilee trump because the Jubilee is technically the only time that the ram's horn is blown. The other times it's silver trumpets. So just like Yom Teruah, it's really a silver trumpet that's blown, not a ram's horn.
Right. Well, I think back in Leviticus, it did say it was a shofar they're going to blow. 25, 25. Okay, so we're about done. I did want to read this one thing here I found interesting in this a book by Jacob Milgram, where he talks about a modern day example of Jubilee. He said, finally, I would like to cite a modern and exotic example where some of the Jubilee provisions are operative and effective. In the Kingdom of Tonga, an island in the South Pacific, some 90,000 people live under laws reminiscent of those in Leviticus 25. All the land of the kingdom is the property of the crown. Every Tongan male, on reaching the age of 16, is entitled to a farm plot sufficient to support himself and his family. The payment of an annual tax guarantees tenure on the land and the right to bequeath it to his heir. Sales, even most leases between Tongans, are forbidden. On the approval of the cabinet, foreigners may lease land, provided they keep it productive and pay their taxes. But even after renewals, they may hold it for a maximum of only 99 years. Otherwise, foreigners are restricted to trading. Note the parallels. Land belongs to the crown/Yahuwah. The crown/Yahuwah has granted the land to his chosen people and divided equitably among them. Each landowner is subject to an annual tax tithe. Sales of land, whether to citizens or foreigners, are forbidden. Land may be leased to foreigners, but only for a number of years. These laws were passed in the 19th century. They have prevented the development of latifundia, which I'm not sure what that means, among the Tongans and takeovers by foreigners. The Kingdom of Tonga has for more than a century succeeded in preserving its independence and has guaranteed, until recently, economic security for its citizens. So you see where, and we see this happening in a lot of third world nations, where people go in, buy up the land, and then they charge the people exorbitant amounts of interest and just drive the people into poverty. And seemingly the Tongans have been able to avoid this from this, basically following Leviticus 25. So anyways, we're about done. So does anybody have any closing comments they would like to make?
Nope. Good
Thank
stuff.
you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Good stuff.
Okay, now I will close this in prayer. And so we are now on in Yom Teruah, right? So
No, it starts tomorrow night at sundown.
oh, okay. Yeah, somebody called me earlier. They thought we were meeting tonight. And I was like,
Well, because the 3rd is the day of, and so that's why we're doing it the
okay.
night tomorrow night,
So
because tomorrow night is
so actually Thursday is the day, is the actual Shabbat day,
the
right?
day the day of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was a little confused myself. I thought tomorrow
Tomorrow at
And
night.
at night
Yeah,
starts at sunset.
yeah, and Yom Teruah is not a hog, but it is
The Shabbat.
a holy assembly. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Mikra HaKodesh.
But on Thursday is the day that we abstain from working then, right?
Yeah,
Okay. For some reason I thought it was tomorrow.
yeah, it's
And I
Thursday.
asked because I'd have ended up not working 2 days.
So wait a minute. It is a high Sabbath?
It's not a hog.
It's not a feast, but it is a Shabbaton.
A day of rest.
Day of rest. Okay, let me pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the study tonight. And just thank you for everyone who was here and listening and contributing. And just thank you as we go on our way. A blessing upon all who are here, Father, and listening online. And thank you. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. All right. Thank you.